Hey, my name is Jaco, and today we're going through this Portal and Half-Life Iceberg that I found on Reddit. Icebergs probably don't need an introduction to most of you, so I'll try to keep it brief. In the next 20 minutes or so, I will be explaining the points presented on this chart, with information will get more obscure as time progresses and we make our way through the layers. This video will obviously include major spoilers of the Portal and Half-Life series, so beware. Also, before I forget to mention, this wouldn't have been possible without my colleagues TheHoleInMyGarden, Norris and Alsike, so if you enjoyed their parts and want to give their content a try, their channels are linked down below. So sit back and relax while I move on to the first layer of this iceberg. Companion Cube Sentience. By now everyone that has played an entry in the Portal series should be familiar with the Companion Cube. The Companion Cube made its debut in Portal 1, where it was given to Chell in order to help her complete a test chamber. Although you were forced to destroy it while you're trying to solve the puzzle, GLaDOS says the following.
In the event that the weighted Companion Cube does speak, the Enrichment Center urges you to disregard its advice.
An instance of this event occurring is depicted in the graphic novel Lab Rat, where the cube speaks to the protagonist Doug Redman, which can be disregarded by the fact that he's a paranoid schizophrenic that is dependent on medication to keep him sane. GLaDOS also briefly mentions that the Companion Cube possesses some form of sentience in Portal 2.
I think that one was about to say, I love you. They are sentient, of course. We just have a lot of them.
But it's pretty hard to tell whether or not the Companion Cube does indeed possess some level of intelligence, or if it's one of GLaDOS's many ways to mess with Chell. Chell is Cave's daughter. The most reliable source that I could find about this was a post made on the Portal subreddit. It states that Chell is the daughter of Cave Johnson and Caroline, and that she was sent to the surface by her mother after deciding that the testing was too unsafe for her. This claim is substantiated by multiple things. The first being that one of the potato experiments from the Bring Your Daughter to Work room is accredited to Chell, meaning that she must be the offspring of an Aperture employee, and that the potato was only able to grow so big because Cave Johnson helped her cheat, which isn't unlikely when you regard Cave's reputation as an unscrupulous businessman. Another piece of evidence is that a child can be seen in the background of a painting depicting Cave Johnson and Caroline, where the theory states that this must be Chell. The theory also explains why GLaDOS would be so mean to the main character if she was her daughter. It claims that Caroline was stripped of her memories when she was forced to become GLaDOS, and only realized the truth later on, but deciding to not explain this to Chell because she would feel the need to stay there, which Caroline tries to avoid because the testing is too dangerous. The last thing that the post mentions is that the translated lyrics of the Turret song are talking about how Chell, who is addressed as a daughter, should leave Aperture. This is definitely an interesting theory and a good read. The post is linked below if you want to know more about it. G-Man is an island. This theory was originally published and popularized by the Game Theory YouTube channel. It's a bit too long to explain in this video, so I also linked the full video in the description below. I personally think that the theory is a bit too far-fetched for me, but let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. GLaDOS is a hanging woman. If you're also confused by the title on this one, you're not alone. All I could find during my research was this image, which just points out that GLaDOS kinda looks like a hanging woman. I think that this theory is very silly and too unsubstantiated, because if you applied the same thought process to Wheatley, you could argue that he's a football because he's shaped like one. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to show this on here because I feel like this belongs more on a certain website than on YouTube. GLaDOS is Caroline. Caroline was Cave Johnson's personal assistant until she became his successor. I'm not quite sure why this is on here, as it's a confirmed part of the lore and an important plot twist in the game.
Hello everyone, it's me Alsike, profound playboy, multi-millionaire and genius, sparing a few moments of my time to feature on this Portal Iceberg. Without any further ado, let's start with topic 1. Betty was one of the more notable cut features from Portal 2's back catalogue. Originally proposed during the early development stages, Betty was set to be a core-based robot whose primary purpose was to show the protagonist to each chamber, in a similar manner to GLaDOS during the events of the first game. Seemingly to remind the player of this similarity, Betty's acronym was intended to be GLAADOS, standing for the Gyroscopic Liability Absorber and Disk Operating System. I couldn't find much on Bren Advisor. The most relevant thing I could find about a Bren Advisor in Portal was this character, found throughout the Half-Life series, most notably in Black Mesa. The only link to Portal is a very indirect mention in the final hours of Portal 2, a book detailing the game design process of Portal 2, so I'm not all too sure if that's what the entry is talking about, but it's the best I've got. I believe this entry is in regards to ApertureScience.com, a website created by Valve in 2006 to promote Portal. The website's somewhat hard to access now due to it requiring Adobe Flash Player, though some screenshots and videos still exist. In essence, the site was a bleak command prompt, accompanied by a looping video that allowed users to type in a login of some sort to access various references to the game, as well as an application form. This entry pays homage to Ratman, the former test subject of Aperture Science Labs. Ratman is said to have died sometime after saving Portal 2's silent protagonist, Chell. Due to Eric Walpole's reluctance when confirming or denying this theory, many believe that the Ratman didn't die, but rather escaped and potentially left important details in his notation on the lab walls. This entry focuses on Corporal Shepard, a soldier from Half-Life's opposing forces. As Valve's games are theorized to be interconnected as part of a multiverse, some fans began making connections between Portal's trademark weapon, the Aperture Science handheld Portal device, and the initials ASHPD. Despite developers' insistence that this was merely coincidental, some keen fans cited Gabe Newell's previous statements supported their ideology of the intentional reference. I believe Epistle 3 is a reference to the long-awaited third entry to the Half-Life series, which was hinted at in a rather strange way by Mark Laidlaw. In late 2017, Mark abruptly published a document named Epistle 3, which was littered with somewhat random Half-Life references that seemed to substitute the names of core characters with something similar. For example, Alex Vance became Alex Vaughn, Mossman became Dr. Mars, and so on. The connection to Portal is the fan theory that Epistle 3 finished at approximately the same time as Portal 2's beginning, due to the similar change of terrain and Freeman's miraculous projection into the future. F-Stop was a title preceding Portal 2, proposed to serve as a prequel to Portal. It was cancelled over a decade ago, however some of the surrounding excitement was revived when an indie developer's game, Exposure, began gaining notoriety. As we don't know the mechanics of F-Stop, the only concrete similarity we have is that both of their names are puns based on camera settings. And for the final entry of this layer, I'll be discussing Mel. Mel was intended to be the original protagonist of Portal 2. The only valid appearance of Mel is found in the final hours of Portal 2, when an early placeholder of Chell's model is shown. This model was then repurposed into the second character of the co-op campaign. Go through there, I'm on the button. Before finally being completely removed from the game. Despite this, some unlabeled concept art was appointed to Mel's appearance due to its supposed disassociation from Chell and seeming lack of purpose. Well, that's all the topics I've been tasked with covering. Thank you to Jaco for allowing me to cover this layer. Follow Twitter for funny and subscribe to Jaco.
Turrets. Turrets are a big mainstay of the Portal franchise. They were first introduced in Portal 1 and have become a big part of games in the Valve universe, alongside Valve's merchandise. The walking turret was a cut enemy from Portal 2. It was first shown off as concept art but ended up not making the cut. The actual structure of the enemy is still in the game's code, so data scrappers were able to dig it out and show off the general concept of what the enemy was supposed to be. When asked about it, Karen Prell, the Valve animator, said the turrets were removed because they didn't work well. Some of this concern can be showed in the following concept footage. Dog was created by Aperture. Dog was a machine created by Eli in Half-Life 2 to protect his daughter Alex. The actual lore of Dog doesn't really matter as much as the model itself. About a year ago, a theory surfaced on the r/Half-Life Reddit detailing the possibility of Dog being a modified Aperture Science AI that Eli somehow received in his days at Black Mesa. This theory builds onto the lore of conflict between Black Mesa and Aperture as detailed in Portal 2 and the Half-Life series. There's not much left to say other than that, it just seems to be a little Easter egg. Aperture Fixtures. Aperture Fixtures was the original name of Aperture Science back when it was founded in 1940. The name change was because the focus of the company had shifted from manufacturing shower curtains to actual science and research. This is what led to the events of Portal 1 and 2, and I'm not too sure why this was put into the Iceberg as it's an important aspect of the game's story. But the original writer of the Iceberg included it, so whatever happens, happens, I guess. All Valve games are connected. This seems to be a very popular theory, which is true to an extent, so I won't cite a specific source, but most of my research has come from this Steam thread, which I'll be paraphrasing. The theory starts with Day of Defeat, which was a multiplayer game based in World War II released in 2003. So logically it would make sense for this game to come first because of the time it was set in. After this came Team Fortress Classic, which is confirmed canon. The game took place in around 1940 to 1950. Team Fortress 2 is next, which is confirmed to be set in the 60s to 70s. Everything that occurred in Portal, Half-Life and its expansions most likely take place during a similar time period, which would line up with the events of those games. The Counter-Strike games would have taken place before the Black Mesa incident. Portal 2 would have taken place sometime after the events of Half-Life 2. Portal 2 would have taken place sometime after the events of Half-Life 2, which would have been sometime around 2040 to 2050. After this, the Left 4 Dead series seems to be the only outlier in this theory, with there being no evidence of a zombie apocalypse. All in all, I think this theory is fairly unsubstantiated. The link between Half-Life and Portal has already been made, but the other Valve games have little to no connection to that universe. While there are some interesting parts of this theory, there's hardly any evidence to justify these claims. Return to Ravenholm. Ravenholm, or Half-Life 2 Episode 4, was the title of a cancelled Half-Life DLC that was set to be developed by Arcane Studios, the company behind games like Prey and Dishonored. It started development in 2006 and was set to take place before the events of Half-Life Episode 2. The Console. The Console was a character made for Half-Life 2 who was set to be the predecessor to Wallace Breen. This character was made to become immortal throughout the Combine's artificial life support. This would be something revealed during the end of the game as a major plot twist. We can only see a couple of models from the files of a beta build of Half-Life 2. There are also sound clips hidden away in the files of the game. Chell was dead at the end of Portal 2. This was a theory that had originally surfaced on Reddit that detailed a user's in-depth proposition that Chell, the main character of the Portal games, was in fact dead. During the end of the second game, GLaDOS takes you up to the surface by an elevator. While going up, you see a large turret singing an opera with an orchestration of smaller turrets. After this, you were taken up to a field and left in solitude. This is what seems to happen. However, if we take a look at Greek mythology, there is a belief that heaven is a cornfield, and when you arrive up in the elevator in Aperture, you arrive in a field. If we take a look at Greek mythology, there is a belief that heaven is a cornfield, and when you arrive up the elevator in Aperture, you arrive in a field. It is also said that when you arrive in the Greek afterlife, you do so with your best friend. In Portal, you arrive in the field with the companion cube. The theory is definitely interesting, but there isn't really any concrete proof other than the fact that the end makes a nod to mythology and the fact that there were so many turrets which could lead to your death. It's not very clear how and when Chell died. But, yeah, that's it for me. I haven't really been given much direction, so I don't know if this will be left in, but for the sake of it, I'm gonna throw out a shameless bit of self-promotion. Check out my channel. It's kind of bare bones and ugly right now, but if anything on my channel interests you, check it out and tell me what you think. I'd appreciate the engagement. That's all from me though, so see ya.
Every robot is sentient. This entry alludes to the robots in the Aperture facility being sentient. This isn't really supported by much, but it probably is most likely true. Chell is an android. The place where this theory seems to have originated is a 10-year-old forum post.
Is Chell an android? I've played through Portal and found several references that somehow point to the fact that Shell may be an android. GLaDOS says, "Well done, android." And Android Hell is a real place where you will be sent. Shell does not say anything like Atlas and Peabody. This may be excused by her brain damage due to the suspension. Shell is an orphan and thereby has no record of parents or family. Cave Johnson says that the repulsion gel does not interact well with the human skeleton, but Shell gets covered in it and appears to be fine. The moon rock gel is supposed to be extremely toxic since it appears to be killing Cave Johnson. Again, Shell is covered in it and is fine. So, is Shell an android?
Make of these what you will. I personally have my doubts because most of these can be explained away with previously covered points. Again, a link to this post is in the description if you wish to engage with the source material any further. Cave Johnson Core. This is a direct reference to the LEGO Dimensions spin-off, where Cave Johnson has transferred himself into a core. Information on this is questionable as no direct confirmation exists that confirms whether or not this could be considered canon, which leads us to the next entry. LEGO Dimensions is canon. The answer is no, it isn't. Portal guns are real. There is literally no info on this, but the answer is pretty obvious. Redman on Moon. During the events of the single-player campaign of Portal 2, Redman's fate is left unknown. Whether or not he's dead is left up to debate, as Charles' cryogenic stasis bed that she used before the events of Portal he took refuge in had disappeared entirely. One piece of evidence for his death is the song called Ghost of Redman. Some speculate that Redman may have made it to the moon as shown in the hidden picture encrypted into the game's audio file. You can find the audio file by bringing a radio into Redman's den in Portal 2 Chapter 2, Test Chamber 6. Still Alive is canon, an excerpt from the Half-Life 2/Portal wiki reads, Portal Still Alive is an Xbox 360 Live Arcade exclusive edition of Portal released on October 22nd, 2008. It features the original game with various new levels and 9 new achievements. The additional content was modified from and based on the levels from the Portal The Flash version map pack created by We Create Stuff and contains no additional story related levels. There was a slight change in the campaign which included avoiding being crushed whilst going through a series of engines. Portal Still Alive has not yet been released on PC, although an unofficial mod is available which includes ported versions of all the bonus chambers. Final layer. Shell is still trapped. This point references fan speculation about Shell still being trapped after the second game's ending. It's quite challenging to prove whether or not this is the case, as there are no sources suggesting the contrary, although it wouldn't be unlikely when you grant Shell's previous history with GLaDOS. 2005 build. The 2005 iteration of Portal largely took design cues from Half-Life 2, especially Nova Prospect. Most notably, instead of being guided through the facility by GLaDOS, the player was to navigate the facility alone and eventually escape. With the aforementioned omission of GLaDOS as a final boss, during the escape sequence the player would have to manually escape the facility. In the final escape map, the player would have to search for car batteries to power locked door while avoiding hazards such as turrets and fires. The escape map is the only map available for download from this era, and any other maps released are remakes using assets from this map. Additionally, a mod called Portal Beta exists that aims to faithfully recreate the original Portal build. And that was it. Thanks a lot for sticking around till the end. I started working on this a few months ago, but I got sidetracked, so I wanted to make this video to fill some space until my next upload. I have some pretty big videos planned, but they will take a while to complete. Again, massive shout out to Will and Josh for making this possible. The links are in the description below. This is Jakontrary, signing off.
Shit is everything. Said he wanna thunder with the Betty ring. Never wanna thumping in my heady jeans. Heady wanna thunder with the Betty cream. I got full stuff the lineable. Make full line of monologue. I know it I'm well. I get really I know I ain't following your plan. The bomb with the dice in my hand. like I used to. I hope that's enough, I hope that's enough, I hope that's enough. Lord, forgive me, I ain't minding your plans and plans when I was